Senator Rand Paul went on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan and absolutely dismantled traps that she tried laying in the clip that I'm about to show you over the Trump transition team. Joe Rogan has been accused of spreading Russian propaganda for something that he said about Joe Biden in a clip that has gone viral. And finally, MSNBC Morning Joe absolutely embarrassed themselves once again, this time praising journalist Jim VandeHey's cursing tirade over Elon Musk in the clip that you are about to see. They really are completely out of touch with reality. I'm Zach Costello, and this is the Zach Costello Show. Journalist Jim VandeHey is going viral for this cursing rant he went on about Elon Musk. And listen to what MSNBC had to say to him after this.
Everything we do is under fire. Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, we are the media, you are the media. My message to Elon Musk is, bullshit. You're not the media. You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter any more than me looking at your head and seeing that you have a brain and telling you have an awesome set of tools makes me a damn neurosurgeon, right? Like what we do, what journalists do, what you did in Mississippi, what Al Jazeera does in the Middle East. You don't proclaim yourself to be a reporter. Like that's nonsense. Like being a reporter is hard, really hard. You have to care. You have to do the hard work. You have to get up every single day and say, I want to get to the closest approximation of the truth without any fear, without any favoritism. You don't do that by popping off on Twitter. You don't do that by having an opinion. You do it by doing the hard work.
Yeah, come on, so clap, everybody. Whoa. First of all, I've got to say, extraordinary content. It needed to be said.
Yeah.
It continues to need to be said. When all of the garbage is flying around on social media, lying about reporters, lying about the hard work they do, lying about the hard work editors do, lying about everything up and down about not only their alternative set of facts, but alternative set of facts about what people like you do.
Give me a break. The purpose of a free press is to speak truth to power, to prevent the government from lying to us through propaganda. When the press has become a propaganda arm of the government, which it clearly has, you at MSNBC especially, it is the responsibility of the people, and in this case, alternative media sources, to take a stand, to defend ourselves. Thank God for alternative media sources like X and podcasts like Joe Rogan that allowed the American people to see opposing viewpoints and the truth, for that matter, against the lies, misinformation, and propaganda being spread by the professional journalists and press. And speaking of, Joe Rogan is getting hit hard over comments he made on his podcast with guest Scott Storch about the Biden decision to approve long-range missiles that would allow, and did allow, Ukraine to strike deep into Russia.
I feel safer knowing that Trump is in office.
I do too.
I feel great about it.
What I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? Like the people don't want you to be there anymore. There should be like some sort of a pause for like significant actions that could potentially start World War III. Maybe that would be a good thing that we would like to avoid from a dying former president. Mm-hmm. It's the whole thing is nuts.
I mean, look, I don't know shit about politics.
Zelensky says Putin is terrified. You, man. You people. You people are about to start World War III.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Russia fired a missile today.
I feel like
they fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time ever. It's the first time one of those has ever been used.
That's insanity.
Insanity, because those intercontinental ballistic missiles can have nukes on them. This one didn't, but if it does, the whole world changes, and it changes because of the military-industrial complex, and it changes because of the money that's going to Ukraine, and it changes because the outgoing president or whoever the actually running the country has decided to do something insane.
Yeah,
insane. And we're all sitting there watching it, and people are cheering it on. CNN was saying, like, finally, see what their headline was about Zelensky about Biden giving Zelensky the ability to use long-range missiles. U.S. made long-range. It's not like nobody knows where they came from. It's not like nobody knows we've been funding this. It's a proxy war. The whole thing is insane. It's insane. Come to the negotiation table. Sit down. Work this out. Stop killing everybody.
What Rogan says there at the very end is key. Get to the table and end this war. Stop killing people. You'd think this to be common sense, but nope, apparently. And have you noticed the narrative that anyone who questions or challenges the military-industrial complex, like Americans questioning the war in Ukraine, for example, is Russian propaganda? And apparently, by asking those questions, this is what Joe Rogan was doing. Watch this, but pay attention to what this Ukrainian does at the end of this.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast. I'm sending you this video to let you know that I disagree. You talk about these American weapons being sent to Ukraine, which you believe will lead to the Third World War. So, let me tell you that you're repeating Russian propaganda. Putin's Russia is in trouble, so they want to scare you and people like you. His war was supposed to last 3 days. It has lasted 3 years, thanks to the heroism and sacrifice of us Ukrainians. So you're using the only weapon that Putin really intends to use, propaganda. And this weapon really weakens our democracies. Putin's Russia wants to destroy Ukraine quietly. They want America to stay quiet, not great, but quiet. A great America is not an America that abandons countries that defend freedom with their lives. In short, you see, I have quite a few points of difference. If you invite me on your podcast, we could discuss them like free men.
And there you go. You get the plug at the end there from someone who obviously is trying to become more relevant. But the media is now piggybacking off of this to slander Rogan and Russian asset Tulsi Gabbard. Here's the most recent on CNN this weekend.
She's a critic of U.S. intelligence operations. She has promoted Russian propaganda. Your fellow Democrat, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, called her, quote, likely a Russian asset. Now, you and Tulsi Gabbard are both veterans. You served with her in the House. What do you think of her?
Well, I think she's compromised. I think by going to Syria and basically backing a brutal dictator there, Russian-controlled media called her a Russian asset. So I do think that we have a real deep concern whether or not she's a compromised person. And frankly, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, the U.S. intelligence community has identified her as having troubling relationships with America's foes. And so my worry is that she couldn't pass a background check.
I think she just admitted there that she believes Russian media sources. She believes Russian propaganda. But in any case, what got Tulsi in trouble with the Democratic Party is that she did not go along with the military-industrial complex narrative. And again, speaking out against the military-industrial complex is repeating Russian propaganda. This is the narrative. There is no level too low that these people will not stoop to slander this new Trump team, anybody who supports Trump. And speaking of, Senator Rand Paul went on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan and absolutely dismantled the traps that she tried laying over Trump's cabinet picks. Remember, Paul was an active physician for 17 years before entering politics, and Brennan first tries to trap him over vaccine hesitancy, and then over the experience and competency that the American people are demanding with these picks, which Paul absolutely destroys her on. Watch this.
Well, you are a doctor by training. I want to ask you about some of these health picks. I know that you personally said that you have vaccinated all of your children, but vaccination rates in this country, as you know, are on the decline. Are you at all concerned that elevating individuals who have been publicly critical of some particular vaccines, RFK Jr. to HHS Secretary, Dave Weldon to CDC Director, that any of that will erode trust in vaccination?
You know, I think all of us can agree that there's an increase of vaccine hesitancy. And I think it comes from people not believing what the government is telling them. The fact that the CDC Committee for Vaccines and the FDA Committee for Vaccines said for COVID boosters that you should take a booster if you're over 65. And yet the Biden administration and Rochelle Walensky actually politicized that, didn't follow the science and said you should boost your 6-month-old. And the American public is rejecting this. Only about 20% of the American public of all ages is taking the COVID booster because the government hasn't been honest with us.
Well,
that dishonesty has led to vaccine hesitancy.
Other vaccines as well, not just COVID vaccines. There's concern about measles.
Right, but people have to believe it. Exactly, but people are doubting because they're being told that. I'll give you an example. Look, I think vaccines, smallpox, the story of smallpox vaccine, polio vaccine are some of the most miraculous discoveries in all of medicine. And I'm not against vaccines, but like when my kids were little, the hepatitis B vaccine, they still want to give it to them as a newborn. My baby's new and just, come into the world. And you can see how a lot of reasonable people say, why do I have to do it as a newborn? Couldn't I come back in 3 months or 6 months? So really it's about choice. It's about getting rid of mandates. It's about letting people participate, but it's also about the government being honest. What are the risks and what are the benefits? And they haven't been honest on COVID because healthy children do not die from COVID, do not get seriously sick, and there's no proof that the vaccine has any medical benefit for healthy children.
Well, we want to move on to other topics, sir, but we will continue to cover vaccination in this country. I think what you said there is that you're supportive of all those health nominees, from what I heard. You have been, I'm sorry, did you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, I am supportive, but I wouldn't describe them as the problem with vaccine hesitancy. I would describe the government misinformation as the problem with vaccine hesitancy.
Okay. Our polling shows that the vast majority of Americans, 86%, prefer people with experience running the agencies. And 64% polled by us think it's important to appoint people with that experience in Washington. Given that, for example, the Pentagon pick hasn't ever managed a large corporation or held a high rank in the military, do you think he can run the Pentagon?
Yes, and I think the vast majority of people, if you poll them, will say that they don't think people should be picked based on religion or gender or sexuality. They want people to be picked on merit. And one of Pete Hegseth's criticisms of our Pentagon is that we've gone away from merit and gone more towards racial characteristics. And so I think that the people are and would be overwhelmingly in favor of someone who's going to base hiring on merit, not on racial characteristics.
The left is so concerned about misinformation, competency, and experience. All of the sudden, they've hired based on race and gender and compromised just about every government agency, ignoring merit. And they've destroyed trust with the American people because they've lied to us and failed to deliver on any effective results in consequence. Good stuff from Rand Paul. I'm Zach Costello, and this is the Zach Costello Show.